fallen, it ceases to be news. But it is well before dismissing it to remember the great menace this place was to Allied shipping during 4 bitter years. And remember also the tremendous efforts made by Royal Air Force Bomber Command to neutralize this mighty base. Remember the many, many air crews, British Empire and Allied, who gave their lives in attacks on Brest. U-boat pens with great shelters of reinforced concrete were repeatedly attacked. Now it is possible to see the havoc wrought by those devastating 12,000-pound bombs of Bomber Command. Now their bombs can be used elsewhere, and large numbers of German soldiers also can be counted out of the fight. Another great port in France. Canadian cameramen secured these pictures of the first hours inside recaptured Calais. Part of the area had been flooded. If you are feeling depressed because it seems the war will not end as quickly as we hoped, remind yourself how you felt in 1940 when Calais fell. The Hun was pretty close to Dover. Across to Belgium, our news this week takes in a little light relief. International football, England and Belgium. That's an echo of the old days, if you like. You wouldn't exactly call them good old days. In addition to a football match every weekend, there was a crisis. The result of the match was a win for England, 3-0. But that isn't very important. The important thing is that Brussels is one more city where civilized people can once again play a game of football if they want to, without worrying about which is the master race. Now down to business again. Forward elements in Holland crossing the frontier into Germany. American airborne troops and reconnaissance cars of Britain's Sherwood Rangers. It now seems quite definite that the Allies will not go racing through Germany as they went through France and Belgium. But at least it will demonstrate to German thickheads that war can also be terrible for Germans, not only for other nations. Weather has been against flying for many weeks now, but a reminder that Allied warplanes are still doing a tremendous job comes with this batch of operational film from the 8th Air Force. Missions against military installations, enemy transport, and enemy aircraft showing some spectacular results. Seen from the air, the effect is terrific enough. Imagine the effect on the receiving end, with the enemy already fighting a losing war on all fronts. Coastal Command. There's not much publicity for this arm of the Royal Air Force, but here for a change is a little of it. And this also is spectacular. Mosquitoes and bowfighters, with bullets and cannon shells, diving in to attack German convoys. Destruction of German transport on land in Europe compels the enemy to take risks at sea. And despite the heavy defense of flagships, Coastal Command makes German convoy work a suicide job. Rockets. After a heavy attack at sea, the bowfighters have not had enough, so they attack a gasometer on the way home.
Rendezvous at 6 a.m. British and German officers meet, and a 60-hour truce is arranged to allow the civil population to evacuate Dunkirk. The Germans haggled for a much longer time to use to their own advantage. We granted only a short extension. After 12 hours for the Germans to make the road safe, the civilians began their trek to the British lines at Nielbruge. Military officials and French representatives check all documents as they pass. How vividly these pictures recall the refugee columns which thronged the French roads in 1940. Red Cross ambulances traveled into Dunkirk to deal with the evacuation of the sick and wounded. This sorry procession of bewildered people, with such few belongings as they can carry, stretched for nearly 5 miles along the route to the safety area. Among them, we discovered 20 Germans dressed as civilians who were trying to make a getaway. They were by no means anxious to go back. They feared what we had in store for them. Lorries transport the civilians beyond the range of the hell let loose upon Dunkirk when the truce was ended.
During a visit to Aberdeen, Scotland, the Queen and Princess Elizabeth, piloted by Lord Provost Mitchell and his lady, and welcomed by a gladsome crowd, called at Torry Nursery School. Music created by very small children was part of the entertainment. It had vigor, and left the royal visitors with an amusingly charming memory to take with them to the rebuilt Aberdeen Sailors' Home. Even there was one youngster who claimed some attention. Lord Inverclyde introduced the princess, who delivered her first opening speech.
May it please your Royal Highness now to declare the Aberdeen Sailors' Home open.
My Lord Provost, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to come here today to open the Aberdeen Sailors' Home. I have every confidence that this building will be greatly appreciated by the sailors who come here. And it is good to know that when they are ashore, after perhaps long and dangerous days at sea, they will find here care and comfort and a kindly welcome. I congratulate the Society most heartily on yet another splendid piece of work. I have now much pleasure in declaring the Aberdeen Sailors' Home open.
Racing ahead 30 miles from Belfort, the 1st French Army took the town of Mulhouse in its stride. Recapturing the offensive spirit of the Napoleonic era, the newly formed French regiments have completely surprised the enemy by their vigorous attacks. Nothing has so greatly discouraged the Germans as the military rebirth of France. On all fronts, the enemy now faces the mounting strength of armies which a year or two back he thought he had utterly defeated, and of all victories won in the heyday of German triumph, that over France seemed to be complete. The prisoners were quickly taken to compounds several miles behind the lines. It is now the turn of millions of Germans to be herded behind barbed wire. Further north in the Vosges, the Americans fight on the flank of the French army. Here too, despite the wet and unfavorable country, the Germans are getting no rest. Eisenhower had not launched a major winter offensive as these pictures reached England, but at many points along the 400-mile line, the Germans are harried and given no time to reinforce any particular sector. General Winter, though by no means the warrior he once was, is able to slow down even mechanized warfare. Happily, before very long, the frost will have set in, the going will be hard again, and winter will be on our side.
Strasbourg is the greatest prize of the present offensive. The capital of Alsace, city of 200,000 people in peacetime, was captured by General Leclerc's Armored Division and the American 7th Army. There was a good deal of street fighting before the Germans were overcome. At the captured German headquarters, mountains of army propaganda were discovered, telling the German soldiers they had only to hold on a month or two and victory would be theirs. Strasbourg Cathedral had been considerably damaged.